I was 14 years old when I was first introduced to marijuana. The story that I heard from the people around me was that there is nothing wrong with marijuana. And I started to intensify my drug use without realizing that I was doing that in response to some of these things that were difficult to deal with.
I'm not talking about other addiction, like any other addiction. Like smoking weed has a different criteria to someone that you easily can get involved again. Like why, one hit, But did you cut off the marijuana use like gradually, or you did it cold turkey?
I stopped pretty much cold turkey.
مرحبا يا هلا والله. عندنا اليوم لقاء مميز مع شاب اسمه جيك. جيك قدر يتعافى من إدمان الحشيش، الكحول والنيكوتين. بنرحب فيه طبعا، هو بيشرفنا اليوم بهذا اللقاء. Thank you so much, Jack, for accepting my request and welcome to our video.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to be talking with you.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I want to get to know you. So who's Jake Yoder?
Thanks for asking. Jake Yoder is an avid rock climber, an outdoor enthusiast. I'm basically, just a person with an entrepreneurial spirit and a love for the outdoors. And I've always had a love of adventure. And I think early on in my life, that almost found its way out through drug use. It was like the most exciting sort of adventurous thing that I could do. And then because of the inherent problems with going down that road and how unsustainable it is, later in my life, luckily, I was able to shift the focus to a different kind of adventure. And so now my life is very full of rock climbing, mountain biking, outdoor sports, and a love of nature. And I share that sort of outlook with other people in the recovery world, in the sobriety community, and in the mental health community. And I do life coaching and consulting full time. And I mostly work with people who are struggling with addictions. Actually, most of the folks I work with are struggling with marijuana addiction specifically. But I work with many people who are releasing an addiction to marijuana, alcohol, nicotine, and various other behaviors or patterns that fall under the category of repeated behaviors that aren't serving you. And
yeah,
that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, so actually I've noticed that the smoking weed, especially in the West, I mean, USA, I live in New York, you live in California. So you know how is it, especially in California, I think it's, there's no street can't smell like marijuana, like.
Oh yeah.
All the streets.
All the time.
Yeah. So I think there's a high percentage now of young generation that are using drugs. I mean, weed and marijuana, if you want to call it a drug, in a regular basis, like in a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I see this is like a kind of pandemic that we will wake up to later on, maybe in 5 to 10 years, you will look back, oh, what the hell we were doing? Because now more states are allowing that, making it easy for people to get. Okay, From that perspective, this is my opinion. But from that perspective, I want to know your story. You told me you have an entrepreneurial, like adventure spirit, which I think I can relate to. But I want to know like how you got into being an addict to weed and all that before you got sober. So in our channel, we like first to know the story, because not many Arabs they can go out and speak, especially with a video about their experience, because they want to share it, but it's a huge taboo for us, because right. you might not get married, you might not, there's a lot of traditional stuff, not like here in the US. So please do.
Yeah, it sounds like the taboo and the stigma is even worse over there. Where here, there's also a lot of stigma But there's a growing respect for people who are making positive changes. Yeah, man, I look at it like this. If somebody wants to go on a fitness journey and get healthier, we applaud for that. If
Yeah.
somebody wants to clean up their diet and learn better nutrition, better eating, we applaud for that. If somebody wants to address a pattern that they've fallen into with leaning on a substance to serve a particular purpose in their life, we should equally applaud for that, right? All these things fall into the category of positive changes. To answer your question, I was 14 years old when I was first introduced to marijuana. I fell in love with it immediately. The story that I heard from the people around me at that time, sorry, I have a little bit of a cough, was that there is nothing wrong with marijuana. People really believed that there was no downside. It's not addictive. It doesn't cause cancer.
Green is clean.
Basically, yeah, there's no problem, right? But over time, I found that wasn't really true for me. But for 6 years, I thought there's no problem here. There's nothing wrong with this. I know that I shouldn't do harder drugs, right? I'm going to stay away from all of that. But marijuana, no problem. So I leaned in and my entrepreneurial side kicked in, man. I started to sell it immediately. It's like the first day that I smoked it, the next day I figured out how to go get an ounce. I took half of that ounce to school with me and sold it to my friend for the same price that I had bought the full ounce for, right? And he was excited. He was like, "Oh, this is a great deal." I was excited because I had an entire half ounce of weed now for free. And that was the beginning of 6 years of selling marijuana. And that meant that I always had access to it. I didn't have a limit on how much I could use. There was no financial limit. So I used all the time. Morning, noon, and night. I would walk to high school smoking weed. I would smoke weed on the way to the bus. I would get up, smoke weed, miss the bus, roll another joint, walk to high school, and smoke again. I would leave school at lunch and go into the woods behind school and smoke again. I would go back to school and then come out of class, smoke on the way home, smoke when I got home. You get the picture.
Yeah.
And for a while there, I just thought I was having a good time. And maybe I was. I was throwing parties at my house. I was the guy that you could get weed from. I had lots of friends. I had a good time, genuinely. But looking back, I can now see that was my focus. I wasn't focused on figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't focused on exploring my interests. I wasn't focused on becoming an athlete. I found some space in my life for other things that were important. I didn't like fall into a complete slump and like not do anything. I was actually very productive during that time. I was still getting good grades in school. I was participating in extracurriculars. I did martial arts. I learned guitar playing. And I even started rock climbing even while I was still using marijuana and drugs. And it progressed into using psychedelics, experimenting with a lot of things like MDMA, acid, mushrooms, psilocybin, LSD. And those psychedelics were really interesting to me. I used them, and I used marijuana a lot. And over time, it just progressed to where I was doing more severe drugs more often. And I also crossed the line. I started doing things that I thought I would never do. Like I started using Adderall. I started using powders like ketamine and cocaine. This stuff was all around, and I was still getting good grades. I was still the president of the outdoor club at my college. I was still doing things that on paper made me say, okay, I'm okay. I'm doing what I need to do. But meanwhile, I didn't really know what career I wanted. I didn't really know what I knew that I wanted to make a contribution in the world and help people, but I didn't know exactly how to do that. And I really struggled to find that clarity. And I was also really struggling with things that happened, like the the loss of a really good friend of mine in a car accident. My parents divorced while I was at school, and I was in a relationship that ended, and I started to intensify my drug use without realizing that I was doing that in response to some of these things that were difficult to deal with. I didn't really plan that way. I didn't say to myself, oh, my friend died. I think I'll go smoke to cover it up. You know what I mean? It was unconscious. It was unconscious, but I found myself getting deeper and deeper into addiction. And I would lay out a line of crushed up Adderall or Focalin or whatever pill I could get my hands on that was like more like of an upper. And I would lay that out on the bedside table so that I could wake up in the morning and roll over and use that to help me get out of bed, go make coffee, and roll a joint to smoke on the way to class. All of this while getting straight A's, by the way.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, but I was not finding clarity, and I knew deep down that I could never be the person that I wanted to be or figure out who that was if I kept doing this. And I also knew that I was never going to be the best athlete, rock climber, or mountaineer that I could be. And all that stuff mattered to me. So eventually it got to the point where it was too painful to keep doing it, and I had to make a change. And I was lucky to have some influences around me who made some good suggestions. There's particularly a family friend who said, hey, maybe go to a meeting. He said, I was just like you, and you don't have to do this anymore. Go to a meeting and ask for a sponsor. And at that point, I was ready. I had been through enough suffering that I was willing to open up to something else rather than my way of doing things. Because my way of doing things had gotten me to where I was. And I realized I was humble enough to say, okay, this isn't working. So that was the beginning of.
Yeah, I will definitely start. Like, I'll definitely come back to this. I really need to know more details of when did you decide it? Like, because usually it comes with a rock bottom. Like, usually people start hitting rock bottom. Doesn't matter, maybe emotionally, maybe financially. We need to talk about this. But I just wanted to say, like, I've noticed that most of people are using weed or marijuana. They're usually smart people, and they're usually successful, and they can maintain like either like the good grades or the businesses. But
Right.
they reach a point where they can see that this is not going anywhere. Like, this is the maximum I can go in this lifestyle. So
Right.
I need to get. So tell me about the time that you decided you need to quit the marijuana. And because what I want to say is, most of guys are watching us right now, or watch us once the video is uploaded. Like, they will think that, as you said, green is clean. They will say, okay, my life is as a mess, but marijuana is helping me being creative, solving my problem. So when did you realize that the marijuana itself is actually amplifying the problem, or is actually doesn't help you fix your problems. How did it happen? How did this shift of mindset happen?
There were a couple things. I failed a class for the first time because of lack of attendance. Luckily, I was able to take it off of my record, so it didn't impact my grades. It didn't impact, but I had to take more credits the next semester to make up for it. I didn't plan on, failing that class, but I just missed too many of them. So eventually the professor said, I can't give you credit for this class. I was attacked in my own home by 3 people because they were coming to try to steal large quantities of drugs from me. I had marijuana. I had other substances on hand. And even though I never dabbled in meth or crack or heroin, I had like psychedelics that I was selling. And people figured that out, and they came and they tried to take it from me. So there was violence that happened. I never wanted that. I never planned on that. I'm not a violent person. I was a hippie, man. Yeah. I was just a happy-go-lucky hippie. I loved sharing. I had all my friends over. Like, I could not believe that I had just been assaulted and that I had to physically defend myself. And I was violent towards other human beings because I was defending myself and my drugs. Yeah. And I was really shocked by that. Like, not a good situation. And actually, I had multiple situations like that happen over the years. There were actually like 4 or 5 of them. But somehow that one, I was in college when it happened, and they knew where I lived. So even after the situation was over, it was like, those people are out there, man. And I was just like, this is getting ridiculous. I'm surprised the police didn't show up that day. And there was actually a weapon involved also. Like an actual firearm was present. It wasn't used, thank God, but it was there. And I just was like, couldn't believe that had happened in my life, right? You hear these stories, and it sounds like, some fucked up person, some fucked up person that did time in prison, or whatever. But I realized that, like, oh my God, everybody's just a person just like me. And this stuff happens before we even realize it's happening, right? And so that was a dramatic part of my life. That was a wake-up call. And then I just started to feel like I couldn't really be the best version of myself. I started to really get interested. I wanted to go out to the mountains more often and train and become a better athlete. And I had seen some people who were like really impressive climbers. And I was kind of aware that like they weren't partying like I was. They were climbing. They were at the gym. They were like in bed at a reasonable time. They were just impressive to me. And I realized I needed a little bit more of that in my life. So I think for me, it was this mounting feeling that I couldn't be the person that I wanted to be, and that something really, really bad might happen if I continued on the path that I was on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got it. So you have noticed that the downside of the drug, because usually we are focused more on our ego, like our ego system is built in a way that we don't see ourselves guilty, especially like if we choose a way, if we have chosen a way like to use drugs, especially with marijuana. I mean, like marijuana exactly, because it drags you slowly, because the first 2-3 years, it's beautiful years full of nice stuff, nice memories. and without you knowing, it's slowly drag you down like 1 centimeter, like or like 1 inch every 6 months. So you don't notice that. But within
Right.
a few years, accumulating like all together, you will notice the big difference. Because this is what I see, like businessmen. Okay, I'm doing good in business, but I'm stuck. I'm doing good in my relationship, but I'm thinking about cheating, or sometimes I have cheated, or like whatever. But they never blame weed unless, like you said, like something click, like big thing happen. Like I think it's a messages from God, from our higher power, just to wake us up. Like it's a time. So tell us about the time. Like, what did you do to overcome this addiction? Like, and how bad was it?
Man, yeah, I feel like I basically opened myself up, and I was like, okay, speaking of higher power, I was like, God, universe, I need a new path. And I was willing to do something new. And I agree with you. It really does happen slowly, that I realized that I was using weed for everything, to help me study, to start the day, to end the day, a lot of stuff in between. And maybe there's a few, very 1 in a million human beings in this world that could do that and live the life that they're actually meant to live. Like, I'm thinking of this one video that I saw with Seth Rogen, where Seth was like, hey man, I've been smoking weed constantly for my entire career, and I've been very productive. Okay. 1 in a million, right? Seth Rogen, for him, it worked. It was fine. I don't know. Maybe there's other trauma and stuff that's unaddressed.
Exactly.
That could be, but I don't know that for sure. But I know that he says his truth is that weed helped him. My truth for me is definitely not that. And it's easy to see looking back, because I could not learn how to navigate my emotions on my own. I could not learn how to sit still and meditate, because I needed weed to make me feel calm.
Relax. Yeah.
I couldn't learn how to socialize and be myself using my own heart and soul, because I was always using substances in those scenarios. So I couldn't master myself. I could not reach like a high level of spiritual practice. But I valued spiritual practice. I valued wisdom. I valued insight. I was always interested in these Eastern philosophies and Buddhist teachings and spirituality and meditation, but I didn't have the discipline to do the practice. So I think I was interested enough in rock climbing and in spirituality that I opened myself up. I took the suggestion of the family friend, and I went to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. And I went to like 2 of those a week for the first year or so. I went to like 1 or 2 a week. And it really helped me, because even though it didn't feel like everything that I needed, it was a place where people celebrated being sober and being clean from drugs. And nobody that I knew in my school or my age was doing that at that age. I was 19 years old when I got sober. And most people were just beginning their journey with most of this stuff, whereas mine had already ended. So it was helpful to be in that community. And in the meantime, I went and got some other needs met in other ways. Like, I hired a coach who helped me learn how to meditate and use visualization and set goals and gain clarity on who I wanted to be. I took the last of my drug dealing money and hired a life coach. And then I gained a lot from that. And then I also leaned into my climbing and just did so much. I was outside so much more in the mountains, in the wilderness more. And I got addicted to that feeling of being.
But did you cut off the marijuana use like gradually, or you did it cold turkey?
I stopped. It's a good question. I stopped pretty much cold turkey. I think on my last day, I knew that it was going to be my last day. I was finishing what I had. And I think maybe the couple days leading up to it, I smoked a little bit less. But more or less, there was no long, complicated, like weaning off plan for me. It was just, I smoked my last bowl and I knew that I was done. And the next day, I was done.
And you never had any like a little relapse, or like while doing the recovery? Because what like my I'm taking notes here in my mind, and I'm seeing you're doing it, or you have done it in a really, like, almost you could say perfect way, because you got the nature, which you love, going to the mountains. You love biking and rock climbing, which is actually activity that gives you adrenaline or like dopamine, so you kind of get a substitution for the drug itself. You're a spiritual person, and this is the main core of recovery, like connected to higher power and like seeking the help. Plus, you opened up in a group meeting, so you already shared your thoughts. You got rid of an anxiety and bad feeling that you had. So I can see a mixed up of the perfect like scenarios, with hiring a life coaching as well, doing the right thing. Okay, but I want to see, like, during the way of recovery, when you were 19 and 20, there was any relapses, any bad thoughts to go back? Because this is a huge struggle between guys who smoke weed. I'm not talking about other addiction, like any other addiction. Like smoking weed has a different criteria to someone that you easily can get involved again. Like, one hit, like me, even me right now, after 5 years in recovery, I don't like to be around anyone smoking weed, because I can never know what. Maybe I'm in a bad mindset right now. I'm not feeling well. Maybe I will smell it. I mean, just saying that, I want to protect myself from any other thought, because doing hardcore drugs, I'm successful now, I'm working, so I don't want to do it. But taking one hit might trick you anytime,
Right.
So what's your thoughts on that?
I never looked back with weed, man. I never looked back. I never relapsed on weed. I never did. It's been almost 10 years. I told myself that I did enough of that for a lifetime, which is true.
Maybe in heaven you can continue.
Yeah. I felt like I knew what that was, and in some ways I felt like I already had the best of it. I already conquered it. I already was king of that jungle. I was already standing on top of the mountain.
What was the maximum amount of weed you smoked in a day?
Oh my God. I don't know. I used to, sell like quarter pounds, half pounds, pounds of weed I would have. And I would take a huge stash for myself out of that. And I could easily have gone through like a quarter ounce or a half ounce. That's not what I smoked every day. I probably smoked, more conservatively, maybe like a quarter a week or something like that. But on 420 or days when we were really celebrating, I'm sure I went through a half ounce of weed on certain days. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, but you never relapsed on it. You don't have any craving for it. You didn't have, like, not right now, maybe before the first few years. Did you have any craving for using marijuana again?
There were times when I would say it was tempting, or I would start having the thought. But I just felt like I was personally just so done with it. I just knew it was so out of alignment for me at that point. Anytime I thought about using it, I felt like why go back there? Why go back? I already know what that's like. I'm on this new path now. Why would I want to disrupt that? And I think I convinced myself early on, which is still what I preach every day in my social media content and to my clients, the people that I help with this process. I convinced myself, which is a truly, I believe this, I convinced myself that there were better feelings and better experiences out there. And anytime that I wanted to use weed, I looked at it as that's going to be a shortcut to something that's only going to set me back in my larger search for enlightenment, right? My larger, more meaningful search for how to navigate myself with some kind of grace in life. And so I always knew that it would be a trade of something temporary for that actually wouldn't really be worth it, because what I was giving up in exchange was way too sacred to me.
Yeah. Actually, I want to come back to two things. One thing, the first thing, that what you mentioned right now, I use this method as well. Like whenever like I have a bad thought, or I thinking about like relapsing. No, I mean, like I'm done with drugs too, because it's been 5 years. But sometimes you think about like a quick fix, like a pornography, or like a quick, high from a girl, whatever. So I use that to like, what if I had it? Okay, fast forward, and then I will enjoy 2-3 hours, and then fast forward. So I jump into the future when I meditate, or like I think about it 2 minutes, and I was like, it's not worth it. The bad feeling comes after that, the withdrawal symptoms, the lack of discipline that I will lose. As you said, losing some part, or like some connection with my higher power, or like with my ambition that I have in life. So it's not worth it. And the longer you build your life up, because you need to work hard, be like accountable for like your life and build it up. Like the more you have successful stories in your life around your dreams, the less you will have, or like the easier you can control any thought, because sometimes we are human. Sometimes you jump in. But the second one, I want to go back to what you mentioned about maybe there is some 1 in a million of people using marijuana and is still okay with it. I've always mentioned that to like my friends or like my people. I'm talking about Snoop Dogg. Like, it's a Snoop Dogg smoking.
Right.
And you see his life, you think this guy's famous and rich and billionaire. I agree with that. Maybe he's famous and he has money. But if you jump into his life, you will notice that he has many emotional or like whatever, like family issues. Like he doesn't even believe in marriage. Like he doesn't even think about like raising like a huge family, like a proper way. I don't want to like just talk bad about Snoop Dogg. We used to, I still love this guy, we used to listen to his music and enjoy it all the time. But I want you to know, like sometimes you see the small picture of someone or whatever they mention, and you don't see, as you mentioned, maybe that guy as well. You didn't go into his life and see like, how is he feeling once he goes to bed or once he wake up? Or how long he can still go like this? Or maybe, and the good question, what if he quit weed?
Right. What if he didn't? Yeah.
How much better he could be in his business? He reached living like 10 level or 11 level. Maybe if he quit weed, he will reach 25. Right. So you can never predict that, because I believe in science, and science is telling you, even if you smoke in moderation or take one drink in moderation for a longer period of time, doesn't matter whatever like your genetics or your like personality, it will affect your mind. And this is That's like true. This is studies. Yeah. Because they do study for 20, 25 years, and you can see the results are the same. Some people like less, they're like, maybe they have less strength or different genetics. But at the end of the day, there is something like the sky is blue. No one can tell you. Even if you want to convince me that the sky is not, that doesn't mean the sky is not blue. That's for me. I mean, that's my opinion. That's why I think about like, who are you? Anyways, so we go back to you again, and actually the biggest question regarding weed. People ask, okay, it's legal, man. Weed is legal. You think you're smarter than the governments? You think you're smarter than those guys? Why you think like smoking occasionally will not hurt you? Like they would say that, like, I'll smoke like every while and then. Smoking is legal. I'm talking about people who suffer from the addiction of marijuana, or they are like now leaning into the addiction without them noticing. How can you answer this question?
It's a good question. You know, some people could argue that it's not a problem for them. And I can't really tell you
how to live your life.
Yeah, I can't tell you if that's true or not in any given circumstance. Maybe if I know someone really well and I can sort of see the ways that it might be holding them back, but they don't think it's a problem, I might have a part of myself that I respect their decision, but I might disagree. Yeah. I might think they have a problem. But for any stranger on the internet who says like, hey, I use this, I don't know, twice a month and it's not a problem for me, I don't know, man. Personally, I don't think I can make a sweeping statement about marijuana. Some people use it medicinally as an alternative to a pharmaceutical that could be more harmful. It's a very complicated topic. You know, I have clients who I've worked with in depth who have ultimately figured out that they prefer to have very strict, very sort of limited like rules around using it medically with an actual medical supervision. And that's something that is a decision that I can respect. It's legitimate. I'm talking about people with a very complicated clinical situation. And
yeah, we're talking about stoners.
Right. And so like, it's very complicated, but I think there's a lot of people out there who will defend weed, who will say that it's harmless, who will still be in denial about the ways that it's holding them back or the ways that it's negatively impacting them because they're still attached to it, you know? And
I think that's the reason, because I used to have like close friends. Me personally, I was smoking a lot of marijuana weed, but it wasn't my drug of choice. So I used to have like a close like girlfriends or whatever, like they are stoners, like they cannot eat or wake up before they smoke. And I could see that even though I was an addict, I could see that they have a big problem because they cannot eat, you know, they're losing weight, you know, like I'm looking at it like, I know I am an addict, but the problem with you that you're living in a denial, you know. I know I admit that I'm an addict and I want to change, but maybe not now, maybe later on, which is I did, thank God. But there is like, I'm talking about like people who are like, the marijuana has taken over their life and they're still defending it because they're in love. I feel like it's a relationship. It's type of relationship with marijuana, with you know, with doing the grinder itself, you know, with rolling it up, with listening to the music before a long day, relaxing and all that. So, anyways, I don't want to actually take more of your time, but I just want people to know that you are a sober life coach, and especially if anyone wants some help with marijuana addiction, you have technically. I want to know more about your programs. If you like, what type of coaching session you can offer? Like, can you tell us more about this?
Absolutely. So if you just recently quit marijuana or alcohol, or you're really ready to quit and you're ready to finally make that change, and you want to do it in a way that's going to actually be inspiring and fun and is going to help you find a new path so that you're not focused on stopping or quitting, but you can actually focus on the new life that you're starting. I have a program for that is an 8-week program where we have a community of people who are going through the same thing. And I've teamed up with a therapist and a nutritionist to teach inside the group so that we can cover a wide range of holistic health topics. This is a wellness-focused course. It's a mindfulness-focused course. And it's basically a way to do a deep dive into learning about holistic health. So we're not as focused on the just trying to take something away from ourselves. We're really focused on rewarding ourselves. How do we feel better than ever? How do we use food and supplements and the reward system of the body through exercise, meditation, breath work, somatic practices, through inner child healing work. We're doing all of these things to support people with feeling better than they ever did when they were using drugs and alcohol. And it's a heck of a lot more fun than just trying to grit your teeth and do it by yourself, which a lot of the time doesn't work. And not only is it likely to not work, it's not all that inspiring. You could go a long time and not drink alcohol and still be miserable. I actually know a lot of people who have been through that. You go a long time and force yourself not to smoke weed, but if you don't start something new that lifts you up, that makes you feel good, and you don't learn how to tap into the neurotransmitters, the dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins that make you feel good, it could be a long, hard road, even if you manage to not smoke. So we want to basically make it fun and inspiring for people. And that's where the Inner Ascent group coaching program comes in. We have a group of anywhere from 6 to 12 people every 8 weeks that go through the program. And it comes with a video course, a group chat, and 2 live coaching sessions every single week.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, actually. But do you do also one-to-one, like coaching?
Absolutely, I do. I offer one-to-one coaching programs. And for all of my one-to-one clients, the group program is also included. So my one-to-one clients get access to the group if they want to participate in that as well. And I have a 6-month one-on-one and a 3-month one-on-one program. If people want more information about that, you can find basically everything is at the link in my Instagram bio at Natural Highs Recovery. You can find me on TikTok at Natural Highs Recovery. You can either one of those pages, TikTok or Instagram, hit the link in my bio, and you'll be able to register for the group if you'd like to. You can book a call with me if you want to ask more questions and explore if we'd be a good fit to work together. And you can also go on there if you want to check out testimonials, check out my website, and even join our free Facebook group too.
Beautiful, beautiful. Actually, I will leave everything in the description of this video. If you want to go out, guys, and check his Instagram, especially if you're struggling with weed, with marijuana. We actually do have like 100 days challenge as well. But I think there's some people who want to explore more about like marijuana, especially because we're talking about addiction. We focus more on pills as well, like everything. So I really love the way that you guys put on your program. And I mean, like, it's a beautiful thing that, I mean, we both share the whole message, you know, helping people to recover. Like, my dream is to help 1 million recover from addiction. And hopefully together we can do that. So thank you so much, Jake, for your time. And I will leave all your links in the description of the video. And if you have a final word or advice for people struggling with weed and they want to get out of it, like one thing you want to say or I want to tell them, and we can end with that.
I want them to know that by the time they're done with the process of quitting and starting their new life, they will know in the core of their being that there are actually better highs out there than weed. And you may not know that now because you haven't experienced it yet. But I promise you, there are better feelings than the feelings that weed can give you. And once you've experienced them, marijuana won't be attractive anymore because it's a very poor quality high. It's like if I said to you, hey, do you want this really good weed or this really shitty weed? This one's going to feel great. This one's going to suck. You're going to take the better high every time. Well, guess what? There's a better high. There are better highs in life out there that are not marijuana at all, nor are they any drug. There are experiences and connection and deep fulfillment that can give you a better feeling than any marijuana or any drug can give you. That's my promise to you.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And hopefully we meet you. Maybe if I come to California, maybe we'll hang out. Maybe I will see how you do it, like in the mountains.
Yeah, man. Come surfing.
Yeah.
Come climb in Yosemite.
Yeah. We'll do that. We'll definitely. Thank you so much again. And see you. Thanks.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
Thank you so much. يعطيكم العافيه شباب. اللي حاب يشيك على الانستغرام تبعه بيقدر يتفرج عليه، راح يكون في الديسكربشن. اذا حاب كمان تسال عن البرامج الموجوده عندنا او البرامج الموجوده عند جيك، راح تساعدك كثير، بالذات اذا انت عندك مشكله في الماريجوانا والكحول. بنشوفكم على خير بفيديو جديد. سلام.